But mark my words. This war will be fought not on the frontier or on some distant battlefield, but amongst us.
The Patriot is an American epic historical war film written by Robert Rodat, directed by Roland Emmerich and starring Mel Gibson, Chris Cooper, Heath Ledger and Jason Isaac. Though this movie is enjoyable, it received criticism due to its historical inaccuracies, so stay tuned to discover the truth behind the movie, The Patriot. The story takes place mainly in rural South Carolina and depicts Benjamin Martin, an American colonialist opposed to going to war with Great Britain, who along with his adult son gets swept into the Revolutionary War when his home life is disrupted and one of his sons is murdered by a cruel British officer. Benjamin Martin is a composite character based on 4 historical men: Andrew Pickens, Francis Marion, Daniel Morgan and Thomas Sumter. The film was harshly criticised in the British press, in part because of its connection to Francis Marion, a militia leader in South Carolina known as the Swamp Fox. After the release of The Patriot, the British newspaper The Guardian denounced Marion as a serial rapist who hunted Red Indians for fun. Historian Krista Hibbert said of Marion, "The truth is that people like Marion committed atrocities as bad, if not worse, than those perpetrated by the British." Conservative radio host Michael Graham rejected Hibbert's criticism of Marion in a commentary published in the National Review. Was Francis Marion a slave owner? Was he a determined and dangerous warrior? Did he commit acts in the 18th century war that we would consider atrocious in the current world of peace and political correctness? As another great American film hero might say, "You're damn right, that's what made him a hero 200 years ago and today." Sean Punzik, a professor of American history at Athens State University in Alabama, who wrote, "Marion deserves to be remembered as one of the heroes of the War for Independence. Francis Marion was a man of his times. He owned slaves and he fought a brutal campaign against the Cherokee Indians. Marion's experiences in the French and Indian War prepared him for the more admirable service." During pre-production of the movie, the producers debated on whether Martin should own slaves, ultimately deciding not to make him a slave owner, something that would be highly unlikely for the period.
"Sir, we're not slaves. We work this land. Freedmen."
"Oh, then you're freed men who will have the opportunity and the privilege of fighting in the King's army, aren't you?"
Another major criticism is of the character Tavington, portrayed by Jason Isaac and based on Banastia Tarleton. In the movie, Tavington is portrayed as a ruthless villain who committed vile war crimes. This portrayal has been viewed as the film's a character assassination of Tarleton. Ben Fanton, commenting in the Daily Telegraph, wrote, "There is no evidence that Tarleton called Bloody Ben or the Butcher in rebel pamphlets ever broke the rules of war, and certainly did not ever shoot a child in cold blood." Tarleton, however, gained a reputation among Americans as the Butcher for his involvement in the Battle of Waxhaw in South Carolina. What happened during the Battle of the Waxhaws, known to the Americans as the Beaufort Massacre or as the Waxhaw Massacre, is subject of debate. According to an American field surgeon named Robert Brownfield, who witnessed the events, the Continental Army Colonel Beaufort raised a white flag of surrender, expecting the usual treatment sanctioned by civilized warfare. While Beaufort was calling for quarter, Tarleton's horse was struck by a musket ball and fell. This gave the loyalist cavalrymen the impression that the Continentals had shot their commander while asking for mercy. Enraged, the loyalist troops charged at the Virginians. According to Brownfield, the loyalists attacked, carrying out indiscriminate carnage never surpassed by the most ruthless atrocities of the most barbarous savages. In Tarleton's own account, he stated that his horse had been shot from under him during the initial charge, in which he was knocked out for several minutes, and that his men, thinking him dead, engaged in a vindictive asperity not easily restrained. Also, Tavington is depicted as aristocratic but penniless. But Tarleton came from a wealthy Liverpool merchant family. Tarleton did not die in battle from impalement as Tavington did in the film. Tarleton died on January the 16th, 1833 in Herefordshire, England at the age of 78, nearly 50 years after the war ended. The Patriot was also criticised for misrepresenting atrocities during the Revolutionary War, including the killing of prisoners of war and wounded soldiers. While atrocities occurred during the war, the most striking of the film's depictions of the British atrocities was the burning of a church full of unarmed colonial citizens. This has no factual basis nor parallel in the American Revolutionary War, and is to simply cast the British, again under the command of Tavington, in a bad light.
Burn the church, Captain.
The historian Richard F. Snow, editor of the American Heritage magazine, said of the church burning scene, "Of course it never happened. If it had, do you think Americans would have forgotten it? It could have kept us out of World War I." While some events in the movie, such as Tarleton's pursuit of Francis Marion and his fellow irregular soldiers who escaped by disappearing into the swamps of South Carolina, were loosely based on history, others were adapted, such as the final battle in the film, which combined elements of the Battle of Cowpens and the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. Most of the plot events in the film are pure fiction. During development, Emmerich and his team consulted with experts at the Smithsonian Institution on sets, props and costumes. In addition, screenwriter Robert Rodat read through many journals and letters of colonialists as part of his preparation for writing the screenplay. In his review of the film, American critic Roger Ebert wrote, "None of it has much to do with the historical reality of the Revolutionary War." Producer Mark Gordon said that in making the film, while we are telling a fictional story, the backdrop has serious history. Some of the resulting characters and events thus were composites of real characters and events that were designed to serve the fictional narrative without losing historical flavour. For me, the movie doesn't take the historical events seriously, as it in some cases completely fabricates and oversimplifies the realities of the war. The Patriot may be entertaining to watch, but it is important to remember that it is entertainment only, pure fiction based in a historical period.